After 15 years of working with families, I can tell you the exact moment when parents lose their kids. It's not when they go off to college. It's not when they go to a public high school. It's sooner than that. And it's completely preventable. It's the moment when the parent hands the child a smartphone. Let me show you how this plays out. The parent is confident. I've raised my kids well. He's a sweet kid. I'm going to give him parental controls. I'm going to teach him how to use the phone well, because when he's in college, he's going to have to figure it out on his own, right? Maybe for the first days, weeks, even months, things seem fine, but then you start noticing a change. He's not sleeping as well. He's more tired. He's waking up more groggy, more irritable. He seems to always be on the device. When I try to call his attention, he snaps at me, or he just doesn't hear at all. Grades are slipping. He doesn't want to do real world activities, spending less in-person time with friends, withdrawing from the family. Here's the trap. These all seem like normal teen problems, right? And to some extent they are, but the phone dramatically exacerbates them and adds new problems that you can't see. Let me tell you what's really happening in your child's brain before and after they get the smartphone. First thing to realize here is it takes 25 to 32 years for the brain to fully develop. The last part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, the judgment center, doesn't finish developing till mid-20s to early 30s. This is the seat of executive functionings. What does that mean? Inhibition, self-control, and judgment, foresight, planning. In other words, the abilities your child needs as a mature, responsible person to control their impulses and to think before they act are not even fully developed in the brain until their mid-20s or early 30s. They're getting the smartphone way before that, oftentimes in their teenage years or even earlier. Not only is the judgment center not developed at this age, but they have a greater sensitivity to pleasure-seeking and novelty-seeking due to the enhancement of dopamine receptors during the teenage years. So the time when the child does not have a completely developed judgment center, is more sensitive to pleasure and novelty and thrill-seeking, is the time when they're getting this device that's designed to make them addicted. The problem with addiction is not just that the person is hooked to this behavior or substance or activity. The additional problem is that they no longer take pleasure in other activities that they used to enjoy. This leads to an addictive cycle in several ways. Because the phone use is cutting into their sleep, they're even less capable of self-control. Because one thing that turns off the judgment center is lack of sleep, similar to the effects that you get under the influence of alcohol. Because they're getting on average at least 200 notifications a day, they're constantly task switching is destroying their attention. They're constantly distracted. The lower attention span means that they find it hard to concentrate when they're doing their homework or tasks that require more commitment and effort. So what do? They turn back to the phone, which is not helping their attention span, it's decreasing it even more. Hence, a classic vicious cycle. It feeds on itself. They're also not getting the positive dopamine rewards from real human relationships, whether with their friends or with their families. This leads them to feel depressed. And what's the fastest way to feel better? Get that quick dopamine hit from the phone. Again, a vicious cycle that's feeding itself. We haven't even gotten into the negative effects of the content of what they're seeing. With video games, they're often extremely violent, or because they're playing with strangers online, they're exposed to extremely crude language. If they're not violent, they're mindless. They're getting accustomed to mindless entertainment as a way of avoiding real work. With social media, there's constant social comparisons. This is toxic for girls especially. At a time when their identity is still forming, their self-esteem is most vulnerable, they're being exposed to highly curated, perfected images of other people, and they're comparing their own day-to-day lives to these artificial images. Their self-worth gets tied into how many views, how many comments, how many likes do I receive, oftentimes from people that they barely know. Of course, the worst offender is one that no one likes to talk about because many are addicted themselves. That's pornography. Average age of exposure in a recent study is 12 years old. I think it's actually much younger than that. Diocese of Arlington did a private report and found that it was closer to 6 years old. I worked with a boy that age who was caught by his father molesting his younger sister. Where does that come from? Kids don't just make that up out of their own heads. They imitate what they see, and it's very dark. These behaviors bring shame, which means your kids are less likely to open up to you and get the help that they need. So when is the moment that you lose them? It's when you hand them the smartphone. It opens up a whole dark world that's designed to capture their attention and keep it for as long as possible. These people are not their friends. These are multi-billion-dollar companies who hire thousands of behavioral psychologists to keep kids addicted. Most parents talk one-on-one with their kids less than 15 minutes a day. On the other hand, the average American teen has 8 hours and 39 minutes of entertainment screen time. That means they're spending hours interacting with peers and strangers who do not have their best interest in mind in a very toxic culture. This is where parents say, I don't know what went wrong. I sent them to expensive Catholic schools. We went to church together. We had family dinner together. But even the best parents can't compete with Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. And then here's the good news. This challenge is completely preventable, and the solution is entirely in your hands. I've seen the families who've done it differently. It's amazing. Their kids are so mature and happy. They're leaders of men. They know what their priorities are, and they're willing to sacrifice for them. That's what you want. In the fourth video, I'm going to give you my guide for saving your family from digital destruction. But first, I'm going to give you the steps that every family with a screen-addicted child missed. If this resonated with you or even scared you, honestly, it should, because this is affecting millions of families and it's terrifying. We're being destroyed by forces of the devil. Please subscribe to this channel so I can continue to help many families. Check out my free guide in the description so you can get some quick wins. If you're already seeing some of these signs in your child, don't wait. The sooner you act, the better. I'll see you in the next video.